من الشيطان الرجيم بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم الحمد لله رب العالمين والصلاة والسلام على أشرف الأنبياء والمرسلين حبيب الله العالمين أبي القاسم المصطفى محمد وعلى آله الطيبين المنتجبين الهداة المهديين المعصومين المكرمين الذين أذهب الله عنهم الرجس وطهرهم تطهيرا. The topic that we chose for tonight is marriage in Islam. I must say the sweet topic of marriage. For many people, marriage is a very important part of their life, and for some people it would be a very important part of their life once upon a time, and I think for some people it might become a very important part of their life again and again and again, so it just never stops. Inshallah, that for people who are not married yet, inshallah, Allah will provide the facilities to get married as soon as possible. And for people who are married, may Allah save their marriage with love and the kindness that they can have next to each other, with the salawat ala Muhammadin wa ali Muhammad. Now, as we try to always make it interactive, so marriage in our life, where would you put it as different parts of our life? Remember, we talked about this in other topics as well. So you've got religion, you've got job, you've got family. Where would you put marriage amongst those things in your life? Where is it? Because that's a very important question. Like, for example, I give you an example. If tomorrow somebody comes and says that I want to go and study, I can ask them, why do you want to study? Where is that study in your life? There might be different answers. Some people may say that I'm going to study because I want to become a particular professional for my career. I want to become, that is going to be my job. So this person studies to become an engineer, studies to become a plumber, or studies whatever the job is. He's studying to become that person. The study itself is just a means to get to a job. Somebody else say, why you are going to study? You say, why do you want to study? He says, it's my passion. I just love this topic. I always want to study it. And his job is something else, but he wants to study that. For somebody, study might be a religious duty. You say, why are you going to study this? He says, because I've been ordered to do it. Doesn't matter if it's not going to be his career. It's not even his passion. He may not love, for example, learning ahkam sharia. You may not like it. You may not even be that interested in it. But it's part of your duties and you've got to do it. We always, every day, for people who have children, like Hajbadi knows that, we have to study a lot of things that has nothing to do with us. We have to teach children, have to read these things. What is this? It's for kids. But we have to do it. There's no interest in there, but we have to do it. Now, let's go back to the question. So, where is marriage in our life? Where would you put it? Family? But you know that many people in their life have financial problem because of their marriage. Like, they promised to pay the mahar and they couldn't afford it. So that marriage became a financial burden for them. Nothing to do with family there. It's a business. Each person. Islamic duties as well. So family, Islamic duty. We just mentioned business as well. Yeah, part of business. Yeah, is a financial contract. Marriage is a very strange event in our life that is not one dimensional. It has a lot of dimensions. In fact, it would affect a lot of things in your life. Marriage affects our finance, affects our psyche, our emotions, our physical health. With marriage, in certain aspects, get better. Sometimes gets worse if you become lazy and eat and sit and get fat, because that's what happens. Sometimes with marriage we get lazier because we are busy with other things. It could affect either way. Marriage affects relationships, affects sometimes people get married because of marriage. They have to learn a new language. So many people get married and they have to learn a new language because the wife is from another country originally. You have to learn new words. So marriage is a very unique contract. There's nothing like it. There's absolutely no contract in Islam. In Islam, we've got different contracts. And when I want to do the khutbah for marriage, when somebody wants to get married, I say something at the start. Do you remember what I said? Because you've been in a couple of them. Do you remember what I say, Hajj? I say something very different to maybe what people have heard. I said this contract is not between two people. It's between three people. I said the marriage contract is not between two people. And everybody looks at me, wait a minute, what's going on? What's he talking about? Yes. Is it between, I'm just marrying this girl, and then why does he say it's between? I said, because the third one is Allah. Sometimes we got a contract is between us and Allah. Like nadhr. When you do nadhr, is part of contracts. You know, uqood in ahkam, in fiqh, they call it uqood. One of the uqood, one of the type of aqd is nadhr. You go and you say, Lillahi alayya, for the sake of Allah is on me to do this. Becomes a contract between you and Allah. Nobody else is in between. Nobody. But when you get married, you say the same thing while saying yes. You say exactly the same thing. For the sake of Allah is on me to do this and this and this and that. And the same thing with the other side. For the sake of Allah. But the other person is in touch with you as well. Which means, like many sins, if we do not observe the rules of marriage, it's not just the right of Allah and being sin, but also is haqqun nas. But also is a legal bond and becomes a problem if you do not observe it. You can go to jail or something. So marriage is a very unique contract, as we said. Now, Allah Tabaraka wa Ta'ala, yes. Yes, of course. The other ones come into it by force, like the mother-in-law, father-in-law, mother of, the auntie sometimes has some things that has some rights, and uncles and all that. Even government, even the government. That's right. But government is not. You may not make a contract with the government. The government is just there to make sure that contract happens. The law. That's right. That's true. That's true. Yeah, it could be. You could say that here you are actually, if you are especially in a non-Muslim country, which means almost anywhere nowadays, hardly any country has real Islamic law, and because of that, you actually, with marriage, you are promising to do certain things. But I think we could keep them separate, because you may get married to somebody with religious law, but not get married with the governmental laws. It's possible. So we're talking about marriage in Islam, but yes, of course, the laws will come. And also, as any other contract, you can have conditions in marriage. which those things would be add on top. So now Allah Tabaraka wa Ta'ala, this ayah that we recited, a few ayahs are recited, the second ayah was about marriage. Allah Ta'ala says that one of the signs of Allah is that He has created a spouse for you. And He says, لِتَسْكُنُوا إِلَيْهَا. The purpose of that is for you to be calm next to each other. You calm next to your spouse. Which means that you could conclude that if somebody is not calm next to his wife, or the wife is not calm next to her husband, then that means that there's something wrong with that marriage. So that contract is not really serving the purpose. So that's one of the important things with marriage we've got to think. And Allah Ta'ala says, as a result of that, Allah will give you some blessings. There are those two blessings that we all heard of this many times. Again, I always talk in the khutbah, is mawadda and rahmah. Mawadda comes from the word wood, and rahmah, that from rahm, from being kind and caring, and mawadda is type of love that we said it before, that is so deep that you do things based on that. A real love that you would do things based on. You may have real love for something, but not doing something for it, not doing anything for it. You may have, for example, love for a country. You may have love for an object. Some people love the car. They may love something. Yeah? But this love is a type of love that if you don't do anything for the other person, then there's a question, what kind of love is it? It's not real. Now, if we look at the Islamic perspective on marriage, the importance is unbelievable. It's maybe you don't find that in other religions. I'm not sure actually how they look at it. But in Islam, as a fiqhi rule, marriage is mustahab, recommended very, very much. Mustahab mu'akkad is really, really recommended. But if that person thinks without marriage he may commit sin, it becomes wajib. And I'm telling you, who is it that without marriage does not think about it? Fear of sin. Fear of sin. Not committing sin, forget about it, that's of course. But even if you got fear of sin, marriage becomes wajib. Which means practically almost for everybody, marriage is wajib. Because who is there that not being married, being young, and not have the fear of sin? Any young person should really get married as soon as possible. Because fear of sin is always there. It's almost impossible to say a young person that is full of testosterone with the male partner, and the girls other hormones and testosterone, they have testosterone too. But anyway, so full of hormones are going up and down, and they're not getting married and saying, "Oh, we're okay." Really? No. Hajj, we're saying that it's wajib. It's like if I say salah is wajib, that's a very important thing that you're saying. There are other conditions, for example. If I say salah is wajib, that means you gotta pray. Okay? You gotta pray. So if you say, I can't make wudu, I say go do tayammum. It's wajib. Yeah? Yes, of course, certain wajibat, they have a time frame, like Hajj. So a lady in certain time of the month may not be able to pray. It's not a duty upon her. But when we say is wajib, it's very difficult to make an excuse and get away with it. Yes, so that person, you really need to have a good excuse. At least should be actively seeking that. Well, you should have if you could. Yes, of course. If you could, yes, you should have. That's true. Many people should have got married at a very young age. That's true. But because they can't, it's difficult, and there are some other consequences for that, that's fine. But at least that person should take a step in that direction. And it has a lot of benefits, and we can talk about that separately as well. So there is a hadith that, for example, you must have heard this one, that anybody gets married, he has saved half of his religion. Or in other places, 2/3 of his religion. And also another hadith that said most of people in hellfire, the burning, they've never been married, or they're not married when they are in hellfire. So that's a huge difference. As you know, we got two types, as a general thing, we got two types of marriage. There's the permanent and temporary one. The temporary one, the main difference is first of all, it has a time. Both of them have something to make contract legal. They have something called mahr or sadaq or sadaq or sadaq. All of them has been said. So anyway, so there is something tangible as a gift that the man gives to the woman. So both of them is part of the condition. And in the temporary one, time frame is important as well. Now, if somebody forgets to mention the mahr, and if they're doing a temporary marriage, the moment they realize, oops, we forgot, no matter if they had intercourse or not, the marriage is void, finished. You have to do it again. But if it's permanent, if they've done it, if they've been intimate, then the marriage is still valid. They do something called mahrul mithl, which means that they say, look, this lady, the usual mahr is what? Is this? Finished. They do agreements and they give, the contract is still valid. That's for the permanent. Yes? It's fine. It's okay. That's okay. So they didn't know. That's all. They have to renew their khutbah. They have to recite again. They have to give the mahr and validate. Yes. If they don't do that, then there would be a problem. That's right. That's right. Now, valid marriage. There are certain things that can invalid the marriage or cancel it, basically. The one that everybody knows is divorce. But that's not the only thing. Divorce and death are the two important things that everybody knows. So somebody dies or somebody divorces his wife or whatever happens because of the divorce happens, then that's it. The marriage is cancelled. But there are other things that can void a marriage. Like what? That's right. So if a person leaves religion, then automatically that marriage is cancelled. You don't need to recite something. That's it. If one of the couple, one of them says that I don't believe in Islam anymore, because this marriage is a contract in Islam. Again, we think about it. May be married based on Australian law, but religiously they're not married, so they're not religiously allowed to have, to look at each other, to be intimate with each other. All of the things is taken away from them. Yes. If somebody leaves religion, the marriage is void, finished. If she comes back to religion, she has to remarry that again. That's it. Then she's not married anymore. Basically, she's not married what it means that she doesn't even need to be divorced. She's almost automatically, her marriage is almost automatically cancelled. So yeah, I think that's the word cancelled probably. It's called fasakh in Arabic. Terminated or something like that. Yes, different from divorce. Divorce, you have to create that, you have to mention it. You have to say that you're divorcing somebody. You need two witnesses. Yeah. But But there's certain things that they make marriage void, finished. Do you know anything else that finishes the marriage? What is it? Tawaf an-nisa doesn't what, so that well doesn't okay. So if somebody has not done tawaf an-nisa, it means that they cannot be intimate with their wife, but the marriage is still there. So if in a way that, for example, if the husband dies, he still gives inheritance, but he's not allowed to be intimate with his wife. Yeah, still responsible for nafaqa and everything. He has to pay the expenses and everything. Yeah, that's different. Anything else? Have you heard of something called li'an or mula'ana? Yeah, li'an. Yes, comes from la'an. That's right. Do you know what that is? Okay, so if this is ayah of Quran. If a husband accuses the wife of adultery, but does not have any witness, then they will just swear with what they say. He curses. He just sends the curse, the la'an, and that's it, done. They're not married anymore. If the husband says that and cannot prove it, so he does this, he swears that he believes in this, he does this curse that may la'an be on the liar, on the person who's lying. He says, if I'm lying or she's lying. And then that's it. Their marriage is cancelled. Basically, if the moment he's accusing the wife of this, and he doesn't have any witness, this is the end of. They ended up. Yes. So the husband is accusing the wife of adultery, but he has no witness himself. He says, I'm the only one who knows, who's seen this. Yes? Then they say, okay, well, if you cannot do this, you swear by Allah that this is what it is. And then once that's done, he sends both of them to swear. And then they both send the curse on the liar. And then they are separated. Can't finish. It's like divorce, yes. But it's not called divorce. Yeah. As we just said, there are certain things that they finish marriage, not necessarily divorce. Like death is one of them. Divorce is another one. Leaving religion, irtidad, is another one. Li'an is one. There's something else that is called qadhf. Qadhafa. Qadhf is something else. If somebody accuses a married woman of adultery, another person, not the husband, then he cannot provide, this is again ayah Quran. If he cannot provide witness, they slash him 100 times. If somebody accuses somebody else of adultery and he cannot prove it, he gets slashed 100 times. No, there's nothing to do with marriage. I just said it in brackets. That's nothing to do with marriage as such. No. But it could have. Like the wife accuses the husband of committing adultery. Like it could be both homosexuality or heterosexuality, both of them. So if she accuses him of that, then she gets slashed. And then because of that, it can terminate their marriage. Terminate is a good word, actually. Terminate their marriage. Yeah, it's a valid. It was a marriage that already happened. These things terminates it. That's right. There are certain conditions. If they don't happen, if they're not observed, then the marriage again is automatically terminated. Like, for example, somebody gets married today here to a lady and goes another city somewhere else, it doesn't know, meets another lady and gets married to her as well. So he's got two wives. And then later on realizes this lady is the sister of the other one. Then this second one is automatically terminated. Because that you're not allowed to marry two sisters at the same time. Of course, the new one. The first one stays. The second one is invalid. Yeah. And sometimes this might sound silly, but it might happen actually another way. So some people get married like remotely. So the guy himself is here, and somebody is finding a wife for him overseas, and they get married over the phone. Or he gives authority to somebody else to find a wife and marry, to say that the recite, and so that lady becomes his wife. Yes, but imagine this guy has given two people separately to have the authority to find a wife for him and recite and say that this is your wife and send it, and they both do it. So then he has to find out which one was done first. The two people have they said, oh, we just found a wife, and they recited, that said, they are your wife. I said, well, wait a minute, somebody else just called me, said the same thing. So then he has to find out which one was the first one. And then they said if they're exactly at the same time, which is a very, very rare thing, there are different rules will apply. Anyway, becoming too much of fiqh. Sorry? Well, you can be weird. It's possible. Yes. You know that the very important question that most of people have is that what is the standard of marriage? Like, we want to find a husband or wife. What's the standard? How are we supposed to do it? How are we supposed to find somebody suitable for our children, for example, or for ourselves, or for our brothers and sisters? In Islam, the main thing, the first condition is iman, is taqwa. If somebody's taqwa is high and the lady's taqwa is high, these two are suitable for each other as a basic. But of course there are other things. You've got to see if this person can provide for that. For example, the lady comes from a very rich family and she's been living in a very posh life, and then this guy goes and marries the girl from that family, and he cannot provide for her because she's got different standards. Well, somebody needs to tell him, what is wrong with you? Why did you do it in the first place? Why did you go and find a wife from a very rich family in a way that she had servants and everything, and you cannot provide that standard for her? Well, that's going to be the start of problem. So these things are important, of course, but they're not the main thing. And they happen in Islam. There's the story of somebody called Juwayber and Zulfa. Juwayber is what we call Ism Musaghar, like the small one of Jabir. So you got like Hassan and Hossein. So Hossein, Ism Musaghar of Hassan. Basically, Hossein means little Hassan. Yeah? Like, I don't know, Fadl is one name, Fudail is Musaghar of that. Yeah? Juwayber is the Musaghar of Jabir. So sometimes in Arabic it's common that even if the name of the guy is, for example, Jabir, they call him Juwayber, as making it sweet, making it nice, you know. Anyway, so his name was Juwayber. Juwayber was a very mu'min, very good mu'min at the time of Rasul sallallahu alaihi wa sallam. Sallu ala Muhammad wa alihi. And one day the Prophet ﷺ says to him, why don't you get married? You don't want to get married? He says, Ya Rasul, look at me. I've got nothing. I don't have money. I don't have the look. I have nothing. I'm a poor person. The Prophet ﷺ says, you got iman. You got iman. The standard for us is iman, is taqwa. He says to him, go to the house of that guy. There is a rich guy. Apparently he was like a suburb of Medina, that guy. Go to his house and say that Rasulullah ﷺ sent me to ask for your daughter's hand. Javaheri goes there, and the father says, "What you want?" He says, "This is it. I'm here to ask for your daughter's hand." And he says, "Come on, say that in front of everybody. This is a big honor if Rasul sallallahu alaihi wasallam sends you." So he says it in front of everybody. Yes, that's what it is. He still doesn't believe it. He says, "You don't look like somebody that suits my family. You're not at our in our class, if you want to say." And he says, "Look, okay, fine. I'll go back to the Prophet ﷺ and mention this." The daughter, the bride to be, his daughter hears that somebody is asking and something. She comes and says, "What happened? What's the story?" The father said, "This is the story." She says, "Don't let him go back and say this to the Prophet ﷺ and make him upset. You go with it." Yeah, she does. She said, "I don't mind. The Prophet has said it. I don't mind." See, he didn't have anything. She didn't ask if he's got BMW or Mercedes or what kind of what's the size of his biceps. Nothing of these things. Yeah, because I told you before. I think I've seen years ago. I remember there was a young girl who got interested in a boy and said, "Okay, so what's good about this guy?" She says, "Oh, I saw him driving. He did a very beautiful turn." I think, are you out of your mind? I mean, how is that possible that you got interested in this boy because he turned very nice with the car? And I mean, how superficial people can get. Anyway, so I mean, the boy was probably lucky, isn't it? But so this lady says the father goes. The father goes and they go to the Prophet ﷺ, and the Prophet says, "Yes, I have sent him." He says, "Fine." He buys him house, clothes, everything. He's rich. The guy is rich. And they get married. They get married. First night, Javaheri doesn't come home. So where is he? He's in the mosque. He's praying. Or maybe he's room somewhere. He was praying basically until morning. Next night, he doesn't come home. Third night, he doesn't come home. They send out after him. They go to the Prophet ﷺ and say, "This guy is not interested in marriage. What's wrong with him?" And the Prophet ﷺ asks him, says, "What's wrong? You're not interested in marriage?" He says, "Yes, I'm very, very much interested. I could not believe that Allah has been so kind to me, and I've been praying for 3 nights to thank Allah for this blessing, and now I'm ready. I'm going back to the night." So that was the story of showing what Islam means by marriage. But of course, we got something as in Islam is called kufwa. So you got to be similar. Do not think that if you marry somebody with different standards, and that's a problem. In young people, sometimes they go and they want to ask somebody's a girl's hand, and you look at them, they've got thousands of differences in between them. And tell this boy, "What is wrong with you?" He says, "No, my heart is really there. I just can't really say no." I said, "Come on, use your brain. That's a bit, Marriage is not just heart. Yes, heart is very important, very, very important, of course. But use your brain as well. You cannot say my heart is everything in marriage. So they get married. After a short while, the heart gets a little bit less heated, the heat goes down. Then the logic comes out. They start fighting with each other. They start having problems. And that's the problem. And of course, sometimes it's the other way. Sometimes some people get married as if they want to, they go and ask somebody's hand as if they want to buy a car. Everything is like exactly like a business, and that's not good either. Test drive and that's it. Yeah, that's it. As one of those cars that you sit in it, you cannot get out of it. That's it. The doors get locked automatically. So, any questions? recommendation for this? How would you approach? Oh, okay. Well, these things don't have a fixed formula. So the question is this, that Hajj is asking for people who cannot hear him. The question is that, is there some sort of formula how you have to go through the steps of marriage until you're married? Do you have to do engagement or not? Do you have to stay in engagement for a while or not? Most of it is common sense. But what matters is that not to commit any sin. And one of the problems is this young boy and young girl, they meet each other, they want to talk with each other. Let's say even if they go through families. I'm not saying necessarily meeting at university. So let's say they meet even through families. But then some parents have problem with temporary marriage, and they say, oh, no, that shouldn't happen. And these two commit sins because you look at somebody else. Okay, you might look at somebody once to see how they look like. That's fine. No matter what, it's okay. But if you continue with each other, going out and having dinner together and there's talking and all that, of course there's going to be an attraction, it's going to be a sin. So the recommendation is to have a temporary marriage without being intimate, just limited, have conditions, and get to enjoy each other's company, at the same time get to know each other. Then you have to see how much it takes to know each other. Sometimes you see somebody after a month, 2 months, they're fine, they're ready. Sometimes it may take a little bit longer. I think people who stay engaged, if you want to say, or this temporary marriage or whatever you call it, for too long, I don't recommend it. Because that most likely they're just gonna be close to each other anyway. Yeah. The only thing that they haven't done is having a ceremony, and that ceremony is now apparently so important, is more important than what Allah said, what the Prophet said, what logic says. Everything has to go, but what my ceremony expert, these, what do they call them? Wedding planner. The wedding planner is something called. What the wedding planner has said is more important, because he has said that you have to marry 6 months or a year after this, and you have to prepare all these items, and then you can get married. We're not buying a new, dining table. It's marriage, is the word of Allah, is so important. And you make it like a fun, like a joke for yourself to do go and do these things with something else in your life. Don't play with the rule of Allah based on your own desire. Now the girl says, I want to have all these things because I've been dreaming since I was a 10-year-old girl. I was talking to my doll and saying to the doll that I'm going to get married to this guy, this and that. Wake up. That girl needs to grow up and be at the level of getting married. She's still living in that sort of mentality. That causes problems. Sorry? Fairy tale. Yeah, everything has to be fairy tale. Prince Charming coming and finding, the girl and taking her all around the world or whatever. No, be real. Be real. And the important thing is that we don't commit sin. If we don't commit sins, then you're happy. If you're committing sin, na'udhu, then who cares? Your wedding ceremony was so big and was so elegant, and you took lots of beautiful pictures. Remember that you committed a sin. And that the marriage that starts with sin, don't expect much from that marriage. Yeah, any other questions? Is marriage responsibility of the parents to, for example, do something about it? Yes, the marriage is up to a certain point responsibility of the parents. So, for example, one of the things they mentioned for a duty of a father for his son is that he has to provide for him as much as possible, so he facilitates his marriage. Not that he has to pay for everything. No, it's still religiously and legally is his responsibility for the matter, for everything. But you need to provide and facilitate that. At least find somebody for him if you cannot find it. At least try to be the person who uses his, charm and talking and all that to make sure this contract is working well. And all the things that a parent might, any type of parent may have an experience in certain things. Of course, that's important. It has been mentioned in the riwayat that a father should do certain things, even though it's not a religious must, but of course is part of our duty. Certain age for getting married. As I said, the marriage goes back to the religious rule. If a girl or boy knows that they're gonna, they fear, not knows, they fear that they're gonna commit sin, and there's nothing really that would stop them from getting married, then they should get married. Of course, if you find somebody at very young age and say, oh, they should get married because they want to commit, so you've got to be careful, because an 18-year-old getting married today, and 5 years down the line, his taste changes, his standards changes, and he's not stable. Some people are still not stable at the age of 18, 20, and they change with what they like, what they want, and that means that marriage must start going down after a while. So you need to look at the person who is mature, who knows what he wants. He's not one of those people that every day he changes. Then you can trust him. So the boy has to become a man to get married, and the same thing with the girl. The girl has to become a woman to get married. Yeah. You can lie. Tawriya. It's not ghaiba if it is. So yes, if somebody comes to you and asks about this person as a reference, he says, well, do you know this guy? I want to, for example, marry this guy, or my daughter wants to marry this guy. I want to know if this guy is a good guy or not. Then the many maraja, they said that here is not backbiting, it's not ghiba. You can say things, and some have said, okay, you've got to be discreet. So you can't say to this person that, look, I don't recommend him. That's it. You don't need to say all the details of whatever you know about him. You say, look, I do not recommend him. That's it. Be discreet. Not just say, oh, I know he's done this. I saw him once. I was going down the road. I saw him doing this. Once he said that. No, this is my opinion. That's it. Not necessarily. You can refuse. Even they ask, so what is the problem? You say, look, I cannot say everything. I just say with this sort of, for example, may say, like one of the things that in Riwayah says, you should not marry somebody who's bad-tempered. A bad-tempered person, who's got the angry person, that's the person. So you may say, like, his temper is not ideal. Mm-hmm. Yes. Yes. So you're not. You're not allowed to do that. Even you shake your head. That's it. That's a sin. That's ghiba. Marriage different. Yes, you can. No, I mean, again, you shouldn't be like that. You see, you shouldn't make it. Rahmatullah alayhi. This Sayyid, that's the lecturer in Iran. He passed away recently, last year, I think. Ayatollah Fatimiyya. So he said something once. It was very interesting. He was saying that, some people say things or they don't say things. It's 10 times worse than saying things or swearing at somebody. So, for example, you ask about somebody or they want to talk about somebody. He says, "Oh, I cannot say much." That's worse than anything. Come on, say it. Because if you said the only reason I don't like him, for example, is because once we were going somewhere and, I don't know, he blew out his nose, for example, in front of everybody. That's it. It's something very simple. But the way he says it, you think, oh my God, this is he's a murderer? Is he some sort of adulterer? You think about the worst about this person. You have to be very discreet. You have to be very careful. As somebody asks you about somebody as a reference, say, look, I don't, I don't think is the best for your daughter, for example. Or I don't think, if it's my daughter, I don't think I would be very happy. That sort of thing. But if you say the detailed or make it like this guy is such a, and always talk about the good things of it. I know these good things, so you can say those. So look, this guy, I know this is good, this is good, this is good, but there are certain things probably is not the best. That's it. You know, you've got to be careful how we treat people, because at the end of the day, that person must have been a good person, must have been a mu'min, must have been Muslim at least, but they came to you. You know, they haven't come to you because this guy was from, for example, another planet or something. It must have been part of community. So this guy must have lots of good things about him. Got to be careful. Multiculturalism, yeah. Yes, 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 yes. They refuse anybody from not from their own culture. But some Lebanese, they don't even let somebody not from their own village. Forget about that. If he's from Lebanon, he speaks the same language. Everything is the same, but you're not from the same village. So yes, yes, exactly. Well, I'd say for us, for people who live overseas, that's the biggest mistake that one person can do to make. To to say that my uh, future son-in-law, daughter-in-law has to be from that, because when you move from the country, you came to a new country, your standard changes based on this boy or girl, which school they went, which part of Sydney, for example, or Australia they live, who was their friend, who was the teacher, who was, I don't know, the social media that they followed. Based on that, this is a new person. It's a silly thing to think because his origin is from that village, is he's a compatible match for your son or daughter. It's a silly thing to think like that. And I think, and I have to say this now, you ask, if there is a sin committed in the community and because of that, they take the burden. If we destroy the relationship like these people want to get together, and because of our silly sort of privileges that we keep, we don't let these people come together, and that becomes it ends with a sin, we're sharing that sin. And in marriage, for boys, especially boys usually go after girls, and the same way from girls as well, but especially for boys, if there is a bad standard of girls in the community, boys are guilty of that. What do I mean by that? If you are a boy and you pay attention to a girl without hijab, you are promoting not having hijab. You're promoting that. Because the girl who does not have hijab, girl wants what? Wants attention. She takes the hijab off, wears makeup, whatever, because she wants to attract, seek attention from others. And you give that attention to her, you are sharing the sin of that, you know. Well, that's another thing. So somebody who is married, you're saying somebody is already, but we're talking about people who want to get married. Like a young boy wants to get married and goes after, so he thinks this girl with, half a kilogram of makeup on her, she is better than the other one that is covering and is modest. you're going against modesty. Be sure, if any young people, couple of young people hear me, but be sure that most of girls, if they want to do the same thing with themselves, they'll be at least as beautiful as the other one is, because they spend a lot of time and money on their beauty, and they will be beautiful. So you just have to keep your standards. Keep your standards right, the rest will come. But you sharing the sin, you become a sinner because you approve this girl with some skimpy clothes and makeup and no hijab, nothing, no modesty. So you are promoting that, because you say yes to, so that the other one is modest, it prays and does all the things right. Nobody goes after her to get married. Everybody else who got the wife from the non-modest, if you want to say, what's the word? Modest. What's the opposite of this? I forgot. So somebody is not modest, and then you go after them, you're sharing the sin to those people. So I had to say this. Yes, we got riwayah of this. Yes, we got riwayah to think about family as well. Think about the good, decent family, and also be careful that riwayah says that if you go after somebody just for their beauty, even that you will lose it eventually. Yeah, if you go after this thing, but if you go for her iman, for being a good person, you will get beauty, you will get wealth, everything will come. I don't know about that part. I don't I don't totally agree with that. Because genetically that would be wrong to say that as well. I know. I know. I'm just joking. Yeah, you're right. You're right. But sometimes you got to think about some girls might be from a family. In that family, there was a boy who wasn't a very good boy. Like the brother is not a very good boy. Doesn't mean that this poor girl has to suffer. You know, that's very bad to stereotypical people. Just get to know her. Okay, well maybe you should be more careful now. You know that the brother is a drug addict, for example, but it doesn't mean that she's a bad person. Exactly. Well, or she might be 10 times better than the other one whose brother is somebody else. صلوا على محمد وعلى